And now Marko Rubio is going after one of those international organizations that has violated our sovereignty, seeking to completely dismantle it. Yes to this, mi amigo Marco. Ladies and gentlemen, Marko Rubio, who is our Secretary of State, but also the acting National Security Director, the administrator of U.S. aid, the National Archivist of the United States, the de facto ruler of Venezuela, the de facto ruler of Cuba, the chief administrator of the World Cup. Look, this guy's a lot of jobs, okay? I can't name them all. The point is, Marko Rubio has been like a forest in California. He's been on fire, doing some absolutely amazing things, something I've been hoping and praying for. We have two major stories. This one is big. Secretary of State Marko Rubio in the coming days will converge a swath of allies to decimate Antifa and communist-linked terrorists across the world. This is huge. I made a video after that situation at the hotel where another radical left nut job attempted to take the president's life, that the Trump administration had not done enough to combat left-wing violence by destroying groups like Antifa. And now it looks like Marko Rubio is taking that serious. Here is the State Department spokesperson, Tommy Pigott, giving an overview of what's to come.
These designations and our focus is based off of groups who are engaged in violent terrorist activity, such as kidnapping, targeting U.S. law enforcement, targeting the civilian population. And when we started talking about this ministerial, we actually had so many countries raising this as a problem that they started proactively reaching out to us to be involved in this ministerial. That Washington Post article you just showed on the screen, for example, suggested that other countries don't want to work with us on this. Nothing could be further from the truth. This has been a gap in our counterterrorism strategy for decades, and this administration is determined to address that gap and protect the American people.
Amazing. Because this has been one of the biggest problems in this country, okay? These billionaires, these dark money sources around the world are funding Antifa and these various groups, and it's international, it's global. And here's something else. It's going to be 60 countries that are working with Marko Rubio on this. This is huge. 60 countries to tackle Antifa and dismantle their networks. Do you understand how important this is? This is how you stop another assassination attempt. Let's be honest here. These people are organizing through Discord servers. They're getting paid to show up to these protests. They're getting all kinds of allowances by George Soros and his affiliated organizations that he funds. And now you have 60 countries, and of course the United States, coming together and going after this problem in a massive way. And I just have to say, although this thing hasn't happened yet, you can feel that these groups like BLM and Antifa, they are terrified right now, because I haven't seen like a major riot this summer, and it's usually riot season, right? And here's the big one, the huge news. I remember a few years ago, it became a true problem in my mind that these international organizations were trampling on American sovereignty, telling us what to do. In this country, the only person that has a true say over the Constitution is God Almighty. That's how it works. Yet somehow the Biden regime was giving international organizations the final say on what is law and what is not. And now Marko Rubio is going after one of those international organizations that has violated our sovereignty, the International Criminal Court, seeking to completely dismantle it. Yes to this, mi amigo Marco.
For 250 years, Americans have governed ourselves as a free and sovereign people. We choose our own leaders, we determine our own laws, and when we're accused of a crime, we stand for judgment before a jury of our own peers. This is the essential and indispensable feature of our form of government. It is the foundation of our shared way of life. But today, powerful people in faraway places want to take that away from us. They believe that they should be in charge of your laws, of your country, your life, and they don't care whether or not you agree. Halfway across the world, there's an institution that calls itself the International Criminal Court. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But chances are you don't know the names of its judges, of its prosecutors, or its president. And you shouldn't have to. But as we speak, the ICC and its friends are waging a war against our country, not with bullets or missiles, but with statutes and compacts and the force of so-called international law. When the ICC was born 24 years ago, they told us that it was merely a narrow backstop, a global court that would step in to prosecute only the gravest offenses, things like genocide and war crimes, and only when a nation's courts were unable to prosecute them on their own. But the truth is, it was something far more radical and extreme. It was a global tribunal staffed by unelected globalist bureaucrats who claim their power is almost unlimited. The danger of this global court has only continued to grow. Today, it threatens every aspect of our political and legal system. Border Patrol agents removing violent criminals from our country, American Marines risking their lives to defend our homeland, prosecutors working to dismantle terrorist plots to attack and kill Americans. If we stand idle, all of them would be at the mercy of foreign judges thousands of miles away, facing the constant risk of prosecution and even imprisonment for the so-called crime of defending their own country. The American people never agreed to any of this, and they never will. Read the words of our Declaration of Independence. We fought a revolution against a foreign power, transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Independence is our birthright. We will never let foreign bureaucrats take that away from us. This administration will not sit by as the ICC and its allies seek to threaten our people. If they believe they can deprive us of our sovereignty, we will teach them the full meaning of American resolve.
Wow. That was almost presidential. Wow. Look, globalism is next to communism for me for threats to American sovereignty. This has been a big problem for a while. Organizations like the ICC, the World Health Organization, all of these, seemingly good-purposed institutions created by the United Nations or others, they just slowly take everything you give them. You give them an inch, they take a mile, and they just keep going, encroaching on our liberties. And it's absolutely high time to completely crush them. And Rubio isn't just going after the ICC, he is now going after the Cuban regime, sanctioning dozens of individuals because the showdown between the Trump administration and the Cuban regime seems to be coming. The moment there's some kind of resolution, a more lasting resolution with Iran, I think the move to Cuba will be amazing. Secretary Rubio said the United States will continue to use every tool at our disposal to both address the national security threats posed by the communist Cuban regime and to drive the economic and political reforms to give Cuba a better future. And by the way, Cuba, the regime came out and passed some reforms saying, suddenly we're not communist. Private competition is allowed in different sectors now. And Rubio's saying, nah, like that's not enough. That's not anywhere near enough. The regime has to go completely. The State Department is designating 10 entities to further the Trump administration's comprehensive push to end the Cuban regime's malign activities, both in Cuba and across our hemisphere. These actions target interlocking pillars of that apparatus, state-owned entities that funnel revenue to the regime and paramilitary forces, armed civilian groups, and surveillance organizations that repress the Cuban people. That's a strong sign. I am now predicting that the moment Trump sees an opening away from the Iran thing, he is going to take Cuba. That's going to be their big plan, and it's going to be awesome. Taking Cuba, for me, is the most quintessential piece of Trump's foreign policy, because changing the dynamic that has been in this hemisphere for so long, where we, the United States, are here, and then you have Canada, and they're aligned with us, and you have Mexico, and they're kind of like 50-50, and then you have these countries that are like antagonistic, the Argentinian regime before Javier Milei, Venezuela with Maduro, and then Cuba, and then Nicaragua, and all these countries. That has been a horrible dynamic for the world's uncontested superpower. So what is actually more in our interest than to completely topple these governments? We've already done it with Venezuela, and just control what goes on in this hemisphere. Make sure that no humanitarian migrant crisis start up again. Trump understands that there is a possibility that Democrats take power again and want to open the border again. So the wise thing to do is address root causes. Why are people fleeing from Cuba, Venezuela? Okay, because they're socialist, communist hellholes. So why not address that? Make Cuba and Venezuela prosperous. Of course, it takes time, but make them countries with potential such that their citizens won't want to escape and cause a crisis on our border. So that's what Trump is doing. And if a Democrat comes back into power, all of Latin America will be right-wing, and those governments aren't going to want their countries to be used as routes to the United States southern border. Let's all keep a close eye on Cuba, because movement could happen any moment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for watching. God bless and goodbye.